stuff, but really you should do this instead. That's actually the way most meetings used to feel when I didn't work at IDEO. They felt like a lot of yes buts. Yeah, it's a great idea, pal, but really we shouldn't do that. So I have one last one for you, and that's yes and, which is really powerful and people use it in improv all the time. So I want you guys to try this really quickly. A quick brainstorm. Where could we throw a party next year? What would be the entertainment? What should be the refreshments? We get to do 30 seconds on yes and.
Not in a conference style, but we can all sit around at tables and get more interaction. Yes, maybe some music or airline.
All right, I'll stop it there. How did that feel, guys? Good ideas? All right. So what are some of the biggest things? What's the biggest thing you notice when you say yes and? What happened? Energy, lots of good ideas. It feels exciting, right? Suddenly you've got this thing where it's here's my idea and your idea and his idea, and you know there's a really cool thing that happens where you start getting off into really weird things. Like someone says we can throw this party on the moon, and someone else says we could have tigers there. Yeah, and we could have jousting with big foam jousters. Like whatever. A lot of great ideas come out, and a lot of them sound really ridiculous. But if you begin to think about it, there are a lot of ways you can see. Yeah, we can actually make some of that work. If we thought about it, we could really bring these things together. And we think that it's really important to try and have this sort of yes and mentality when we brainstorm, because when you do this, it's really about shifting gears. You think about separating the idea generation from idea evaluation. You find that you're able to come up with a lot more things, a lot better things, and you feel good doing it. If you just have one gear at a time, if you find yourself evaluating your ideas while you're spitting them out, then you're moving in both gears. You're moving in reverse and in first gear at the same time, and you go nowhere. And it's painful. You hear that grinding sound. Not good. Another really cool thing that happens when you do this together is that you see all the ideas belong to the group. You begin to forget who said what. And so it's not about scoring points and about who had the best idea and who's really moving ahead. It's instead about how can we build the right thing together, and aren't we so excited to build this thing? So we have 7 rules for brainstorming we use at IDEO. And I won't spend a lot of time on this, but really the biggest pieces are it's about deferring judgment, again, turning off the evaluation, and encouraging wild ideas. Because if you can take a wild idea, a really awesome thing that would work if you had magic or if there were $1 gajillion in the world, that's great, and you can usually walk a wild idea back into something that's reasonable. Or as Virginia said, if you can think of the right solution for people, you can walk it back to figure out what fits inside of regulations and what fits inside of the letter of the law. And so it's much easier to do that than it is to start with a reasonable idea and try and blow it out into something wild. In fact, you're never going to be able to blow something simple out into something wild. It's much easier to walk it back in. And so we have other things which are about building on other people's ideas, staying on topic, keeping one conversation, which are all just about being a good citizen in that environment. Lastly, we say to be visual because we like to write down every single idea and to accompany that with a little drawing. Because when you're looking at a board like this that has hundreds of little post-it notes on it, it's so much easier to remember what all these ideas were if it's not words you have to like sit and stare at and read for a while. But if you just see a simple drawing, you're like, oh, okay, even if it's a stick figure or boxes and lines, it works wonders. And lastly, go for quantity. The more ideas, the better. Okay, so the last thing is about having less talk and more rock. That designing good solutions and designing change is much like the great FM radio station. Okay, we believe in talking less and doing more. And so this is really about prototyping a lot. And I want to talk to you about the Marshmallow Challenge. And this is not Walter Michel's marshmallow experiment you guys may have heard of, with little kids sitting in a room trying not to eat a marshmallow. This is a thing that a guy named Peter Skillman designed called the Marshmallow Challenge, where you take groups of about 5 people, and you give them each 20 sticks of spaghetti, and 1 giant marshmallow, 1 yard of string, and 1 yard of masking tape. And you give each team 18 minutes to try and build the tallest tower they can with those supplies that they can sit a marshmallow on top of. And the team with the tallest tower wins. And so what you find is you have 18 minutes to do it, about 10 minutes people spend about the first 10 minutes just strategizing. How are we going to build this thing? What are we going to tape together? What are we going to tie down? How many sticks of spaghetti can go together? Those sorts of things. Then about 8 minutes left, they start building. And eventually they get to these really tall towers. And everybody's really happy and excited because we got this great thing. And time's running out. And ooh, let's get a marshmallow up there. And they stick the marshmallow up there. And time runs out and they let go. And they have this ta-da! And the thing comes crashing down. Almost all of them fall flat on the table and collapse. And we find that on average, when people do this, you get towers that are about 20 inches tall. On average, 20 inches tall. Some groups are better than others. We find that when MBAs do it, I know this makes me sad because I'm an MBA, they get 11 inches high. When lawyers do it, they get about 17 inches high. All right, still below average, but okay, getting there. There's one group, however, that's really awesome at this, and it's kind of surprising. 29 inches high, the average tower, kindergartners. 5- and 6-year-olds are really killer at the marshmallow challenge. And it's interesting because when you look at them doing it, they don't sit and strategize, and they don't talk about what they're going to do. They take that marshmallow, they set it down on the table, and they grab their spaghetti, and they just start jabbing it into the marshmallow. And then they take this thing and they flip it over, and they stand up, and they're like, all right, it's like 8 or 9 inches. So they flip it back over, and they start sticking more spaghetti strands on, and they flip it up and say, oh, a little bit taller, oh, it fell down, okay, maybe we need to fix this. And they're constantly prototyping, they're constantly testing things out, building it up, letting it fall, building it up, letting it fall. And they get towers that are 29 inches high. And they don't even have fine motor control. It's kind of amazing. So that's something we always like to think about when designing things. How can we keep a focus on what that marshmallow is and keep that at the center? And how can we constantly test in the cheapest and fastest way that we can? And I'll say actually before I step off of this, there is one more group that does better than kindergartners at building these towers. And thank God for all of us, it's engineers and architects. 39 inches is what they clock in at, so let's celebrate the fact that they can do their jobs and that this place isn't going to fall in on us. So that's cool. So we believe really, really strongly in prototyping, but that doesn't mean it needs to be like this, although this is a really killer prototype. But it doesn't involve oscilloscopes and alligator clips and wires and all sorts of other things, printed circuit boards and all those sorts of things. It can be really, really simple. And so I want to share with you a prototype that we built for Elmo's Monster Maker. Now, this is an app that we built for the Sesame Street workshop, and when we wanted to share the idea, the basic idea is that you can design your monster just like Elmo. You have a blank slate, and you can put in eyeballs and a nose and ears and hats and funny clothes and all sorts of things. And then at the end, you can get this monster to dance just by tapping on it in different ways. The monster will cop different dance moves. It's pretty cool. But we wanted to really develop this in a quick way to say, all right, will you guys invest in this? Should we develop it? And so we made a quick little video for them, which is nothing more than an iPhone screen. And we show, okay, here's the monster, and the monster's dancing, and as you tap the screen, the monster begins to do new things. He's dancing in different ways, and you tap it again, you get a different dance move. He's pretty funky. He's shaking it. Not the happiest monster, but hey, that's okay. He gets his shoulders moving, and it's enough just to show you that the interaction works, and that, yeah, this can be kind of fun for kids. The kids might enjoy this, and it might be something that would be engaging for a few minutes. And we didn't have to code anything to do this, and we didn't have to really build much of anything. We printed out a big picture of an iPhone, and we cut out a hole and put Adam's skates behind it and had him dance. It's really dead simple, and that's all you really need most times to develop something. Even if it's about a program that you want to run in a job center, it can be really dead simple. You can just share the least amount that you need to show people to get a sense of what's moving in the right direction or not. Because when people see something really rough like this, they see the potential behind it. We are all really good at pretending, and we can put our imaginations in it and say, yeah, I can see how that would work as an app. And we see the potential instead of seeing all the flaws. If we coded up something completely, and then we find there's some major flaw in the system, it's going to be really costly to fix. In fact, we look at prototyping as the act of constant prototyping is about winnowing risk out as the cost of successive rounds of prototyping goes up and up. So if you think about it, you want to launch a new program at a given job center, you might spend 9 months working on a proposal, where you work through the numbers and you work through the idea and you figure out every single little facet of how it might work. And you go and present it out to a workforce investment board, and you find out, yeah, no, they're not buying it. That's incredibly costly in terms of your time and your energy and everything else. But if you had a way of testing that idea out in a really small and cheap way as you went, you could work out all the problems before you get there. So you make sure you have the right solutions. So we really have a very strong bias toward prototyping. And we find that when people do this, when they engage in experiments, when they're trying new things, either new ways of working or new services or new programs to offer, that you can run these things like little experiments. And then over time, you're able to build those into regular efforts, from dots to dashes, and then ultimately to lines, to build new routines and new habits. So how do you make this something that's a sustaining effort in everything you do? So if you think about this, you look at a lot of stuff, this comes from a guy named BJ Fogg, who's a behavioral researcher at Stanford, and he has he's learned a great method for how people can adopt new behaviors like exercising. That if you exercise as little as 5 minutes a day, you can make it easy to do that on a regular basis. You can then extend it to 30 minutes, to half an hour, to an hour. And you're doing it 3 days a week, and then you're doing it 5 days a week, and then you're doing it 7 days a week. It's really easy to begin to build these routines if you start with really small little experiments. So it works both for prototyping, but also works for adapting new behaviors. And so we've noticed something really powerful that happens as well. When we do a lot of experiments, these actually change people's motivations. They change the way people think about working, and they help activate and energize people in really new ways. So I did some work with a guy named Baba Shiv for a while when I was working at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. And he was doing a lot of research to try and map how people make decisions and how we can design better services based on that. And he said there are two big motivations that drive 80% of the decisions we make on a daily basis. And so if you think about a graph like this, with valence on one side, which is a fancy word for pleasantness, or how pleasurable something is, and you look at arousal on the bottom, which is just how energized and activated are you, not sort of a sexual thing. But if you think of human experience like this, pleasantness on one side and sort of energy on the other, what do you think that state is when you're sort of down here? You're sort of low arousal and low pleasure. Yeah, that's boring as hell. Oh, that's boring. It's really sad and depressing. There's just no damn fun. And when people want to get out of boredom, the number one thing they tend to seek is the opposite end. They go for excitement. They go up the dopamine curve, and they seek to go on roller coasters, and to go out partying with people, and to have new experiences. They seek a lot of fun. But if you think about this experience down here, you have a lot of arousal and very low pleasure. That's stress. You're freaking out. That is no damn fun. And when you're freaking out and you've been working all night for weeks on end, all you want to do is go on vacation. You want to lie on the beach, and you want to relax, and you want to have a beer, and you want to have that Corona moment. You go from being flooded with cortisol to being flooded with serotonin. And so this is the curve that people go on when they're trying to get away from stress. And so you find the two big drives that most people have are either they seek thrills or they seek to chill. And so we like to think about this as the chill-thrill matrix. And I realized I misspelled WIOA there, but I was trying to think about, as we think about the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act that just came about, where does that put you? Does that make you excited, or does that make you nervous? Because when you think about some of the mandates that people get, if you're working in a company and you get a mandate to say, we need to raise sales by 6% this year and we need to cut costs by 10%, that often makes people freak out. They really don't know what to do, and all they're going to do is work as hard as they